this whole industry of pharmaceuticals that I've spent my life in has not yet tackled, which is the ability to modify a disease track in a way that is thinking about pain differently, which is no longer creating palliative solutions, trying to actually engineer disease modification to stop the incident that's causing the pain. You know, I joke with my children that my role is shaking a can for money whilst I let all of the scientists do the sexy work.
Sure.
But the whole point of this enterprise is doing good. You know, if this product that we create makes a material difference, which we expect it to in the field that it's being tested, the world will change. What we've done is meaningful, what we do is important, and what we do is going to change the world. And you put all of those things together and you get that classic small group of motivated people is the only thing that's ever changed the world, and it's a true fact. So it is with starting a company, a small group of motivated people with a common purpose to develop something that has never been developed before and to put it into practice and change the world is extremely motivating. The opportunities that you are given almost on a daily basis, if you go with a mindset of yes and, then there's nothing that will stop smart, competent, talented people changing the world. The joke of small companies is the CEO, you set the strategy and you clean the bathrooms. You do it all. In this organization, we're really lucky to have 9 extremely talented people, all with an extremely defined role in what they do. And the challenge for all of us is we let great people do great work.
Yeah, so welcome back to Blank Space. We're here with Andrew. And Andrew is the founder and CEO of Consano Bio. If you could just tell us a bit about your business and why you started it.
Perfect, and it's lovely to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, Andrew.
So Consano Bio is a biotech company. We founded in 2023, and we are developing the first disease-modifying agent for radicular nerve damage and pain. So the first indication we're targeting is radicular back pain through sciatica. You may know it more generally as sciatica. Strange fact, most expensive and complicated disease to the health systems around the world. Globally, there are over 100 million people that endure chronic pain and consume healthcare resources as a result of this. And we're targeting modifying disease in a pretty profoundly unique way that hasn't been tried before in medicine.
That's unbelievable. And it's quite interesting actually because my dad, he has sciatica. So like you coming to tell me this is interesting. And I want to go back, Andrew, to like a bit about your childhood, because you know your business is absolutely amazing, honestly amazing, and you're helping so many people. But I want to go back to your childhood and your upbringing. Tell me a bit more about your upbringing and what you were like back in the school. Take me back to Australia.
Righto. So I was like every child in Australia. You know, basically, if you can't kick, catch, throw, and play competitive sport in some direction, you almost have to give back your passport. Like all kids in Australia, sort of I was going to be a football star, I was going to be a swimming star, I was going to be a surfing star, and alas, I was not born with gifted enough genetics to follow any of those paths. I figured out at university that I was lucky. I collected a bit of a photographic memory, and so study came relatively easy to me. Didn't necessarily give me the gift of ambition at the time. I think I caught that through med school. So I went, studied a degree in Melbourne University, did a postgraduate degree at Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, and then joined the pharmaceutical industry straight out of university. And then for the 25 years that have transpired from that, I've worked around the world. I've lived in Asia, I've lived in Europe, I've lived now in the United States for nearly 15 years. I've run women's health at Merck. I've got a deal sheet of nearly 300, or no, less than that. Let's say $100 billion worth of acquisitions and, you know, the horse trading that is biotech into large pharma. I've run regions. I've sort of done all of the things you can do in large company oversight. And now at Consano Bio, I get to complete the dream of starting an organization, building an organization, and then hopefully materially changing the world by delivering a new medicine. So it's not a natural journey. It wasn't as if I imagined doing this when I first jumped into the industry. I think my first curiosities in this industry was, how does healthcare change and how can the pharmaceutical industry kind of drive for it? There's inconsistencies in the way people look at the pharmaceutical industry. Some people think it's the greatest terror on earth. Other people realize that it is result of, science progressing through into medicine. Now I get to see it all, end to end. Start a company, create a therapy, watch it work, and see if the healthcare world can change around it.
No, you're going to help. You're clearly going to help millions of people.
That's the ambition, right?
Yeah, and it's your mindset now, Andrew, compared back to when you were younger. What was like? Was it always like that, or did you ever have like a switch? Was there ever a difference of how you were brought up? Like when?
There's an awful line in Wall Street when Charlie Sheen asks, what's your number? And I think Michael Douglas says more. My number's more. And I as a kid, I think I suffered a little bit of that. I was never really satisfied. I always wanted to sort of go a little further, try a little harder. And
how old are you, by the way?
I'm 50.
No, not right now. You look great, by the way.
Thank you, mate.
And back then, like, how old were you
when I figured that out? I think through university, probably figured out that I was not going to be wildly satisfied with accepting, normal. It sort of created a difficult person to live with, I'm sure, at times, because I didn't sit still. I have a lot of things to keep me busy. I play music, I still stay pretty active, I still try as hard as I can to stay sort of interested in current and topical things. And so that inability to sit still has kind of cursed me for a lot of years, but it does fit pretty naturally now in entrepreneurship. And as I just mentioned to you, as I now eclipse my 50th year, I find myself living a dream that I never really knew that I needed, but that I've now found a lovely pocket for, which is create an organization, get people that, I've worked with before that I've got tremendous respect for, that are intensely smart and capable, put them to work in trying to, break some paradigms that this whole industry of pharmaceuticals that I've spent my life in has not yet tackled, which is the ability to modify a disease track in a way that is thinking about pain differently, which is no longer creating palliative solutions, trying to actually engineer disease modification to stop the incident that's causing the pain.
And what made you get into that? Like, how did you get into this?
Into the company or into the industry?
How did you get into starting your business at the moment now?
Sure.
Because you're doing such a big thing, but where does that come from, Andrew?
So I think through years and years in the industry of, in very large organizations, feeling as if the box that I was in was not quite big enough, always trying to get beyond the, the box that you can be put in a large organization. And then moving from extremely large organizations to a large organization to a slightly smaller organization. The last company that I was CEO of was 300 people. So it was still a large but not massive organization. And now this one we have 9. It's almost, you redact down to the necessary ingredients. How I got into this was a friend and colleague who's actually a headhunter stumbled across a field of medicine pioneered by a gentleman in Colorado in the United States named Dr. Chris Santano. And the concept of taking human blood from, your blood, reconditioning it down, re-injecting it back into you, which is platelet-rich plasma, platelet lysate, is a field of medicine that's been growing relatively quickly. But the concept of transitioning that practice of medicine into a pharmaceutical company and a pharmaceutical through the regulatory development stages, the link had never been made. And so it was right place, right time, with enough funding to start the organization, enough ambition to put pharmaceutical rigor into drug development, where medical practice had evolved without that sort of rigor of test, prove, retest, confirm. It was really right place, right time, ambitious guy with enough friends and colleagues who are competent scientists at the highest level to put the rigor into now putting a pharmaceutical product into this space of medicine that has been, extremely gappy for patients living in pain. There just hasn't been good solutions there for them.
So, and whilst doing all of this, would you say it's different to how many companies have you been CEO for?
This is my second.
This is your second. So your previous company does anything feel different?
Oh, enormously so.
Yeah.
So My previous company was NASDAQ listed, public company, and the pressures of a public company CEO are intense. You are responding to shareholders on a daily basis. You are sort of at the whim of daily trading for the organization. The value of the company can change on a whim. And so much of that role was externally facing, managing an organization's perspective, managing an organization's expectations of the market and trying to deliver on that on a regular basis. In a startup organization like what we have now, most of my focus is internal. How do we build a viable company? How do we motivate the people within the company to actually maximize what they can get out of themselves and out of what we're doing to the highest potential, and then setting a bright future for, I'm still investor facing. My role is, I joke with my children that my role is shaking a can for money whilst I let all of the scientists do the sexy work. Sure. But the whole point of this enterprise is doing good. If this product that we create makes a material difference, which we expect it to in the field that it's being tested, the world will change. But the flip side in this industry is that those people that have invested in the company, and me myself for starting the company, we will do well. So the condition of developing a drug as a living and creating a company around a therapeutic space, you get to do well and do good all at the same time. And that's a big deal for someone who does want to change the world. I came into this whole industry thinking, I want to leave a footprint on something that happens in this world for the better, that I can say I was directly a part of that.
Would you say that that those characteristics are, where does that come from? As in someone that's starting a company and someone that's starting a business, do you think that they need to have certain characteristics that are related to yours?
I think it's a really interesting question. Yeah. So I think I've got a number of entrepreneurial friends, and very few of them do it for the money. Like very few people go into an entrepreneurial endeavor to say, I'm going to make bank out of this. You have to have a pretty strong belief that what you're doing is important and meaningful.
I can feel that from you as well.
And that's the bit. Yeah. We started this with first recognizing how massive the unmet need is. And then the follow-up to solving for the unmet need is, can we do something that is worth it? Because unless you've got purpose, the whole organization, the first thing we did when we put our first 5 employees together was we sat down and said, what's most important here? And the things that are going to be most important are culture, are conviction in what we do. It's like and I don't want to swear on your podcast,
but you can go ahead.
But it's like a no bullshit culture, that we need to have a transparency and an authenticity to what we do, so that when anyone is ever asked or pressed, what is it you do and is it meaningful, we can all stand up behind the stuff and say we've covered nothing up, we've papered nothing over. What we've done is meaningful, what we do is important, and what we do is going to change the world. And you put all of those things together and you get that classic small group of motivated people is the only thing that's ever changed the world, and it's a true fact. So it is with starting a company. A small group of motivated people with a common purpose to develop something that has never been developed before and to put it into practice and change the world is extremely motivating. And on the backside of that, if the company does well, the shareholders do extremely well, and we as shareholders will equally do well, it's almost like gravy to the experience.
It's like an added-on benefit.
Yeah, and I do believe that if you go into entrepreneurship purely out of sort of financial ambition, the passion that you lack for what you're doing will shine through. And there is no one at Consano Bio that is not passionate about what we're doing.
You have a lot of passion.
I do.
I love your passion before
I do.
It's
an energy that some people say is contagious, but my wife might tell you is exhausting.
Oh yeah, it's like to Andrew stuff.
It's a little bit of that.
Crazy right now.
There is a little bit of that.
Yeah, and when you were in Australia, were you with like parents? Like,
yes. I grew up in a very lovely childhood. My parents were relatively well off. I went to a wonderful boarding school growing up. I had a very lovely childhood. Yeah. So none of this was sort of classically born out of terror in my innocence.
Storms everywhere.
Yeah, no, I created the motivations I have more from sort of internal drive rather than from having been forced to live through difficulty. I've been very fortunate in all of the elements that have brought me to this moment.
Amazing.
And I've, through my career had those opportunities that come up in a non-sequential way. Like I bounce through different roles, not necessarily because it was foretold, because someone said, would you be interested? And in my whole life, I've said yes.
So you're always just saying yes.
Just say yes.
On the ball.
If there's, there is an opportunity to live in a new geography. Andrew, you interested? Yes. Andrew, there's an opportunity to take on a much larger segment of a large organization. You interested? And the answer was always yes. And then
I
you
think
figure
that's
it
really
out.
big, by the way. Sorry to stop what you're saying, but I think that's really big. I think anyone that's listening to this that wants to do something, don't be afraid, don't be scared to push yourself to keep going forward, because I would assume
couldn't
that
agree
you would
with that
think
more.
the same way,
Absolutely. And I think that the secret to ambition is to have the courage to say yes to the opportunity. Everyone can always have an ambition over the horizon. The opportunities that you are given almost on a daily basis, if you go with a mindset of yes and, then there's nothing that will stop smart, competent, talented people changing the world.
Have you always been like that? Or was there a switch?
I think I always had it buried deep down. I mean, my self-confidence is obviously considerably higher now and, year by year than perhaps it ever was. And that's not because I think I am better at what I do. The skills that I realize I've picked up, I'm really good at motivating people. I'm really good at working with people far smarter and far more talented than I am, and giving them a common purpose and giving them a structure for them to succeed. And whilst you feel my energy, a lot of that energy is really directed through I am able, because the people that I work with are incredibly talented, and the people that do the work that justify the outcome are the ones that are driving forward the competency. I just get to take credit for all of that. And so the joke of small companies is the CEO, you set the strategy and you clean the bathrooms. You do it all. In this organization, we're really lucky to have 9 extremely talented people, all with an extremely defined role in what they do. And the challenge for all of us is we let great people do great work.
Okay. And would your parents also say what would your parents say about you when you were a child? Like, what would they say you were like? Because how you were as a child compared to now?
My mother.
So
I have 4 children, and I think one of the terrible.
That's amazing, by the way.
Thank you. One of the terrible characteristics that I've passed down to all of them is this insane curiosity. And my mother will say that as a kid it was, but why? But why? Like always trying to understand more. And unfortunately it's passed down through my 4 kids, where there is this.
Shut up, Andrew.
There is this curiosity of almost emotional and mental exploration. And I think I always had that. I was a dreamer. I was very good at entertaining myself with visions of grandeur, be it on a football field or be it in an academic setting. I always expected more of myself, and was, I guess, lucky enough that through this life that I've lived, I've been able to catch some of those dreams. And I think it's built into everyone. I know I can't sort of talk what goes in your mind or what goes in anyone else's mind, but the idea that you expect something great and then you get grateful when it comes is a really lovely life philosophy. And I think it starts with curiosity. You've got to ask the question, you've got to understand. And we have a number of culture points at the organization, and one of them is to stay curious, to keep asking questions and to keep exploring what the answers give us.
And you say you have 4 kids.
I do.
Right? So would you say boys, girls?
A boy and 3 girls.
Boy and 3 girls. Okay. So would you say that they are all quite very curious?
I would say they express it very differently.
Oh yeah.
And some of them are curious intellectually, others are curious socially. My youngest is extremely tactile curious. You give her a puzzle, she's 5 years old and she will just wants to do stuff and build stuff. Whereas my oldest, who's now exploring colleges as he exits high school, is smart as hell. I marvel at his intellect. And they've all collected different sort of expressions of curiosity. And I do believe that is the spice of ambition. If you are curious enough to believe something, you'll have the opportunity to chase it. And if you go back to what we were talking about before with, and you say yes, then life is there for everyone to go take it. And it just requires that little bit of heart and soul. And the challenge with saying yes is you will lose a ton of sleep on the, have I bitten off more than I can chew? Can we do it? Can we make it? And this path, even at Consano, has been far from linear and sequential. There are a bunch of little obstacles we've had to bounce around, and there's been a number of nights that I've rolled around unable to sleep, asking myself the question, can we get through this? And that's the beauty of being at the top end of the accountability chain, is that you get to live all of the great experiences when they work, but you have to endure all of the hurdles when you come up against them, and it's not for everyone.
So would you say that you've had quite a bit of a mental, it's always like a mental game with yourself?
Yeah. Checking out from something that you are super passionate about confirming is impossible. So one of the exhaustion quotients that I think is real is, I don't think you could do this forever. I don't think you could live in an environment like this where there is such intensity and such uncertainty, and call yourself sane, because it'll burn me out. And I have more energy than anyone I know, but it will burn even me out.
I like your energy though. It's
yeah,
good.
That's kind.
Yeah, and I've got 2 more questions for you. One question which is more to do with your business. Anyone that is involved in, if you take your mind right now and the next step with Consano Bio, what mental state do you need to be in to get to the next stage? Sure.
So, and if I'll indulge the question, expand it a little if you don't mind. So in drug development, drug development is exclusively about risk. So you start a concept of drug development with an idea, a curiosity, and everything outside of that is risk that you have not resolved. Can you even drug it? Can you make it? Can you get the right amount of binding and targeting? Can you get the right sort of pharmacokinetic dynamics of the product? Can you get all of the ingredients that require a regulatory agency to say, yes, that is safe, that is acceptable, that is a therapeutic? And then when you put it in humans, is it safe? Is it effective? So all of the uncertainty of drug development, if you have a mindset of we're going to, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? How do you develop a drug? You check off the risks one step at a time. We've now got this organization to a point where many of those risks are now resolved. All of the preclinical risks are now done and checked off. So the things that would have killed this company, and I mentioned a lot of them before, we've checked and say that can't kill a company because we've now overcome that. And we're at a point, and it's a beautiful point in drug development, where you say, I'm now going to put this into human beings with a disease that is affecting their health state in a traumatic way, and I'm going to see if this intervention makes a material difference on their health state. And it gets binary now. It does or it doesn't. And we feel really confident about what we expect to see in the clinical trial we're recruiting for presently. But it's now a little bit out of our hands. That those singular experiments that you would do where you get a result back in 2-3 months, this is a 12-month-long clinical program in phase 1. It'll be a 2-year-long program in phase 2. It'll be even longer than that in phase 3. But you have to wait extremely patiently. And you may have guessed from my energy, patience is not my first virtue. And so what the mindset that we've now have to go into from being like race to the next milestone, it's almost like, let's be patient. Let's make sure we do everything we can for this massively important milestone. So if we were to sit in this chair 12 months from now, we would be able to say definitively, did patients do better? And if patients have done better 12 months from now, we'll pop some champagne corks and we'll, do some celebrating. But the time between now and then requires a little bit of patience and a little bit of, let's just let operations roll for a moment. And for, where we started this, it's a very different spot than where we are now, because it's been urgent and now it's a little bit of let it run. And that mindset I struggle with.
You said that you struggle with that.
Oh my goodness, yes. Waiting for things, being patient, letting things come to me rather than sort of driving and controlling. It's hard. It's different.
You're very, very ambitious and you're very, very driven. You said that you said that you're impatient. I think your drive to do things and your passion towards what you're doing at the moment now, I can't necessarily speak for your company, but I think that is such a big thing in terms of what you're looking to do with your company. And it also leads me on to my next question as well. It's a bit of more of a personal question.
Of course.
But when was the last time you showed emotion? When was the last time you cried?
Oh, I'm good at crying.
Yeah.
My guilty pleasure is I can find emotion, joy, sadness, happiness in just about everything. We had a recent dialogue with the FDA yesterday. I'm in London now having this conversation with you. My team actually met with the regulators, and the regulators in drug development find all sorts of things wrong with your development program that you don't foresee. We had a tremendously positive conversation with them. I was actually running through Hyde Park when I was on the phone with my my co-founder. And I had to stop and I shed a tear. It was like, holy smokes, this is real. And I am very good at being emotional. I'm less good than I would like to be at regulating that sometimes. I do get a little passionate, but put me in front of a teary movie and I'm the first person to break down.
Cry. I mean, that's why you're here. You're doing your business. Right? You're passionate. If I had to say you are one thing, I would say you're passionate.
I would hope that is near the top of the things that people say.
Yeah. Andrew, where can people find you?
So I am clearly on LinkedIn, but check out the website, consanobio.com. What we're doing is pretty meaningful. And as I said, 12 months from now, we'll have a pretty good level of confidence as to, are we going to change the world or is it going to take longer than we thought? But, taking a patient living in debilitating pain, returning them to a normal health state, saving them from consuming all of the healthcare resource that they do and making the world a better place, it's a pretty good motivation to see through success.
Andrew, if I get any back pain, I'm calling you. I'm calling you straight away.
All right, mate. I look forward to that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrew.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you. That's amazing.